Welcome to the Revo Report. We're inspiring faith with reason and reason with faith. Okay, and we're live. You won't believe how uncomfortable Scottie Pippen looks here, but also the timeless lessons we can draw from this conversation about friendship, leadership, and legacy. But yeah, why don't we quickly go to the comments before we play this and let us know what you think. Is this a cringe moment? Should Patrick Bet David have been asking these questions? Because stick around until the ending because it will be both inspiring and kind of shocking. Let's see what some of the people are saying here. So you can see Robert Smith saying, people are not always real friends, but MJ and Scottie were definitely great coworkers. I think we can all agree on that. I'm a huge basketball fan, Jordan era. Still think he's the GOAT. Props to Pippen for not walking out on this interview. Yeah, absolutely, because as you will see very soon, he gets extremely uncomfortable. His body language is saying it. The moving around in the chair that Scottie is doing is wild, doing his best to remain solid. Respect to that man's greatness too. Yeah, I mean, Scottie did great things for basketball. Let me ask you something important. Scottie, do you know what Michael's favorite cereal? You don't? That is very interesting. Respect to Scottie for keeping us cool and being diplomatic about his and Jordan's relationship. I think it's somewhat disrespectful to bring someone on your podcast only to ask questions about someone else, regardless of what anyone has to say. Scottie Pippen has earned his place in sports history. Let's respect and celebrate him. For the love of God, can we have an interview with Pippen without talking about Michael Jordan? I think this is hard. And what do you guys think? Watch this and let us know what you think. Is Patrick Bet David, did he cross the line here? Did he go into cringe territory here? Or is this something that he's just asking questions that people want to know, that he genuinely wants to know? Did he have, a fixed itinerary here where he was just pushing, the question despite Scottie being uncomfortable? Did he not notice Scottie being uncomfortable? Kind of disrespectful and cringe that you're interviewing Scottie, but only talking about MJ. I get it because this was a long interview. And anyway, let's get right into it and we'll share some thoughts in a little bit.
You and Michael spoke.
Right around the pandemic.
Oh, so it's been a minute since you.
Yeah.
Is that the text exchange when he shot you a text May of 2020 and he said, "Hey, Scottie, I heard you're upset. Let me know when you have a minute to speak." Is that the last time you guys spoke?
Something like that.
Something like that. And did you actually call him? Like, did you guys talk or did you just text him?
No, I think we ended up speaking briefly.
Did it end up being good, the conversation?
Yeah, I guess. Good and final.
That's what it was. Good and final. Because of you or because of him?
Yeah.
There you go. You can see Scottie just shifting around here, right? This is what people are talking about. He's visibly uncomfortable here. You can see in the micro expressions on his face and you can see in his body language, right? And you can look at, Patrick Bet David too. He's sensing something too, right? There's some awkwardness happening over here as well.
I don't want to pick because of who. It's just
Got it.
Good and final.
What's more likely to happen? Me going to Carbone in the next 5 years. Carbone in Miami. I don't know what's your favorite restaurant. Let's say Flagler's in Palm Beach because it's closer to golf. Is it more likely of me seeing Michael and Barkley having dinner at Flagler's in Breakers, Palm Beach? Or is it more likely for me to see you and Michael having dinner in the next 5-10 years at Flagler's?
I don't know what kind of dream you be having. But,
What
wow.
do you think, though? Which of those two is more likely to happen? There's a Vegas odds. Like, we're trying to bet some money here on this one.
I don't know. That's a tough one. I don't spend that much time in Florida, so I would probably say maybe highly likely, maybe Charles.
Over you.
Yeah.
Got it. It's that's
Silence.
wild. And would you say a big part of it is The Last Dance and how that was portrayed? Would you say that was it? Would you say, because I sit there and I watch, for me, Kobe. I had Kobe at one of our events, the late Kobe. I love Kobe. Kobe and I are 6 weeks apart, our birthdays, and
Wow.
I watched him play. We had a relationship at the tail end of his, not even career, his life. And it was a great moment. And he said some stuff about Shaq, and then Shaq and I had a conversation together years later, and it was great. And my son, till today, he's met a lot of different people. His favorite athlete he likes to talk about is Shaq. Shaq is his, Dylan loves Shaq.
Yeah. That's
So, and then when you saw that one interview with Shaq and Kobe, they're sitting across from each other, right? That conversation that took place. And then you saw one with Magic and Isaiah. I don't know if you remember those interviews that they did like 10 years ago, something like that, 8 years ago, 10 years ago. It was great to see Shaq and Kobe together. It was great to see
it was awesome.
Isaiah and Magic together, where Isaiah got emotional and he got up and they hugged each other, and you know that whole thing with the two of them. Why is the tension so high with anything related to Michael? You and Michael, Barkley and Michael.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I just think that Michael is a very difficult person to deal with. I played with him for years, so I know that, you know, when it's time for you to move in your direction, then go in your direction. Don't sit there and try to procrastinate or stretch it. That the relationship is not where it was or not what it used to be, and it's never going to be the same. So why try and make something out of nothing, or try to make something that was never there? So
Yeah, you can cut the tension in the room, right? And I think this is what some people are referring to here. Well, you know, this person saying kind of disrespectful and cringe that you're interviewing Scottie, but only talking about MJ. Now, I get it, because this is Patrick Bet David doing an interview, and an interviewer is not just going to ask, is going to ask about the people in that person's life. I don't think there's anything wrong with asking about other people in their lives. And MJ has always been linked to Scottie. Scottie has always been linked to MJ, right? And they will forever be linked. And so, you know, in a sense as well, you can feel the awkwardness, but is Patrick Bet David just kind of doing his job here? And did he have a set question about this? Now, he didn't just ask about Scottie Pippen. To be fair, he didn't just ask about Michael Jordan the entire hour-long interview, right? This is just a portion of it. Patrick Bet David flushed this down the toilet. Pippen was dope back in the day and classy today. Patrick Bet David is about to get roasted by the internet after this interview. And yeah, you can definitely see it in the comments. And respect for Valuetainment for just keeping these comments up here as well. Huge Patrick Bet David fan here, but he looks so lost in this interview. It's so hard to watch this without cringing. The other parts of the entire podcast were okay. Props to Scottie for remaining professional and calm. Hope he improves on this and focuses on the guests. Bro, he is Scottie, not Jordan. This was annoying. Read the room. Yeah, I think that was one of those things where you could feel, I think watching this, you could feel the tension in the room. I think definitely if you're there, you would definitely be able to feel that tension in the room. But really, point number 1 out of 5 that I have today is there is a danger in unresolved conflict. And that's why there was a almost cathartic moment when you saw Kobe and Shaq reconcile, and Magic and Isaiah reconcile. Have you ever had a friendship that just fizzled out, and how there's something there, right? There's something that lingers there. Every once in a while, that thought comes over, and it can cause these mini stress spikes. And the truth is, unresolved conflict can be so destructive, and that cycle needs to break. And I'm just being honest, because you can see here in the opening moments, Scottie reveals his last conversation with Jordan. You can see the discomfort in his body language. You can see him going, you know, breathing in, and him saying good and final with a little bit of contempt there. You can see in the micro expressions, right? And even Patrick Bet David picks up on that. He says, oh, good and final. This is loaded with meaning, right? This is loaded. And I guess in a way he's suggesting closure, but you can see also that there isn't closure, right? There's still unresolved conflict. You can see it. It's there. It's very visible. And even though it's not explosive in a sense, it still creates emotional distance that's hard to bridge. And these mini stress spikes that can affect you. And psychologists even call this stonewalling. It's a pattern of avoidance that erodes trust over time. You don't want to talk about a particular topic because there's still some pain there, right? That wound may have healed. It may be a scab, but there's still a little bit of pain there. In Matthew 5:23-24, Jesus says, if you are offering your gift at the altar and there remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there. First go and be reconciled. And so Jesus doesn't say, wait for them to apologize or, just let it go or, time will heal all wounds. No, he actually commands proactive reconciliation, even if it interrupts worship, even if it interrupts some would consider one of the most important moments in our week, right? And why is that? Because unresolved conflict disrupts our vertical relationship with God and our horizontal relationships with others. And so remember Joseph in Genesis, after years of betrayal by his brothers, he still gets very emotional when he sees them again, right? But he chooses forgiveness, even recognizing that you intended to harm me, but God intended it for good. And so if we can focus on God in those moments, and we know that somehow God is going to turn beauty from these ashes, God is going to bring light out of this darkness, God is going to bring purpose out of this pain, then just like Joseph's story, it can show us that reconciliation is possible, even after deep hurt. But first, the first point of reconciliation is going to be our relationship with God. In a 2020 study in the Journal of Behavioral Medicine, they found that unresolved conflict increases cortisol levels by 37%. Now, if you don't know what cortisol levels are, it's the levels in our body that increase when we're experiencing stress. Unresolved conflict, 37%, leading to chronic stress, insomnia, and even cardiovascular issues. So holding on to bitterness, holding on to deep-seated anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to suffer. But forgiveness reduces anxiety and lowers blood pressure. So it's not just spiritual in nature. It's also physiological, psychological, mental in nature, right? So in Japan, there's this concept of harmony. And it prioritizes community peace over individual grievances. It's a different here in the West, because in the West, it kind of glorifies individualism, right? And while in Asia, I think sometimes you can suppress healthy confrontation, it really underscores a universal truth that we have, and that is relationships require intentional maintenance. Now, you can say that, Pippen can say that, okay, well, it's gone, or it was never there. Okay, so I'm not sure what Pippen is saying here. Was it there and did it change, or was it never there? Right? You can see him kind of backtracking on what he's saying. C.S. Lewis once said, to be a Christian means to forgive the inexcusable because God has forgiven the inexcusable in you. Forgiveness isn't just about the other person. It's about freeing yourself from the chains of resentment. And one practical step to do this is to reach out to someone who you've drifted from, or, maybe that you have this sense of unforgiveness, or maybe you feel like they haven't forgiven you. And as long as you've made that step, I don't think you should keep doing it. Let's say someone harmed you and you just want to reach out and offer forgiveness, to go out there and to do it. It doesn't have to be a dramatic text message or post, social media post or anything like that, but just reaching out and knowing that you did your part. And I think in a sense, once you know that you've done your part and you've reached out for peace, that clears you, right? It's up to them whether they're going to give peace back or give love back or give forgiveness back. That's on them now, as long as you've done your part, because ultimately you can't control them. They're not a robot. You can't manipulate them. And so at the end of the day, you've done what you can do, and now it's up to them to do what they can do.
Great teammate, but we just never were great friends.
Never, even when you guys played?
No.
So when you guys were at the Dream Team, that one clip when Ahmad Rashad asks and says, you know which one I'm talking about, when Ahmad says, hey, Michael, question for you. 3 seconds left, fourth quarter. Who do you want to get the ball to go shoot whatever? And he says, me. You know which clip I'm talking about? He says, Ahmad Rashad, and he says,
yeah.
No, you? He says, yeah, what kind of a question is that? And then you guys are getting off the bus. He says, Scott, this is the one right here. I don't play the clip. Actually, you know what? You may be able to play the clip. Yeah, play the clip here. Do we have audio or no, Rux? I can't hear that. Back up a little bit.
Dumb question. Who would take the last shot?
Me.
That's a dumb question. Me.
So, and then if you want to pause it, and this is, I think it's the right moment while you guys are getting off the bus and saying, where's Scottie? We got to go play golf. Where's Scottie? I think he's having a conversation. Did you guys golf a lot together or no?
Never.
You guys never golf?
No.
So who was he talking about to go golf with him, Rob? Wow, you guys never golfed together.
No.
So when you guys played together, how often was it for you guys to have dinner together?
I mean, we may have like a pregame meal or something like that, but it's always a big party of people.
How many times did just you and Michael have dinner in Chicago? Chicago has a lot of great. Scottie, stop it. Scottie, stop it.
Never.
You and Michael never had dinner together one-on-one?
No.
You know, I want to go to the comment section again here, because look at what this person's saying here. What is so hard to comprehend about working together but not being friends? That dynamic is super common. That's true. Scottie's a real one. Patrick, Bet David, he was giving you plenty of clues to change the conversation. Scottie ain't trying to gossip, talk. Respect. Pippen's ex-wife was dating Michael Jordan's son. That's why he is salty to Michael Jordan. So yeah, I mean, this is true. This is true. There's a lot of instances where you definitely will be working together, but not necessarily, best of friends. But also one thing I want to talk about, point number 2, is the cost of leadership and how sometimes leadership can isolate. And I know this because I've been in a lot of leadership placements. Right, whether it's at a church or at a business or at an organization, and leadership often comes with sometimes the price of loneliness. And why even psychologically the greatest leaders need community. So Scottie's talking about how Michael Jordan was a difficult person to deal with, and that the relationship was never deeply personal. And you can see that. Like, they never went to dinner once. He said this. He said 0. And Patrick Bet David is shocked because, you'd think that if you spent that much time with someone, you might go to dinner with them once in a while, just as buddies. But I think their relationship was really on a professional basis. And you can tell here, I think, that their relationship was never deeply personal, even during their championship runs. So this really highlights a sobering reality. Leaders often sacrifice closeness for their mission. Michael Jordan had a mission. It was to win rings, win championships, to be the best that he could be, to be the best in the league, to be the most competitive athlete of his time. And I think Michael's relentless drive to win created a barrier between him and his teammates. But this is not unique to just sports. You can think of this as, CEOs, pastors, parents who bear the weight of responsibility alone. And there's a story of this actually in the Bible, Exodus 18. Moses is overwhelmed by leading the Israelites. And in fact, it's Moses' father-in-law, Jethro, who advises him, delegate. He says, what are you doing? What you are doing is not good. You and these people will only wear yourselves out. You'll burn out. And then he tells them to kind of create systems in place, right? Even Jesus in Matthew 26:38, he confesses to his disciples, my soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. And the disciples at the time, they have no idea. They have been walking with him. They have been eating with him. They have been traveling with him. They are the closest people to him, but they do not understand what he is going through. And leadership at its core can be isolating, but scripture models shared burden bearing. Okay, so in a 2023 Harvard Business Review study, they found that 68% of CEOs feel lonely in their roles, and 61% believe it hinders their performance. Yet leaders like Microsoft's Satya Nadella prioritizes empathy, saying leadership is about bringing out the best in others. Dr. Bren Brown's research on vulnerability reveals that leaders who admit weakness foster deeper trust. Conversely, perfectionism, which I believe Michael Jordan had, it's a trait, high achievers, you're looking at the greatest evers, right? Tom Brady, LeBron James, Michael Jordan. It can create emotional walls because they have such high expectations from themselves and from others. And when those expectations aren't met, then walls are built up because they get disappointed with people. They get upset with people. And then those people that they lash out on, they build walls as well because they're getting, treated poorly also, right? It was Dietrich Bonhoeffer who wrote in Life Together. He wrote this: the first service one owes to others is listening to them, because true leadership requires humility, the ability to connect, not just command. And back in the day, I think in sports, it was more command and conquer type of leadership. It was more go do this, go do this. It was less a connecting type leadership. We live in a day and age now where it's a more connecting type leadership. If you look at how our grandparents were with our parents, and even how our parents were with us. It was more, go do this, don't ask questions, just go do it. And we live in a very different age now, right? So what do you think? Do you think leaders should prioritize relationships over results, or is isolation inevitable? It's an inevitable cost of leadership. And I think those of us in a leadership position, I think scheduling that kind of one-on-one with different people, asking them, how can I support you? What are you concerned about? I'm here to talk. I'm here to listen. I think those are important moments, and it is quite shocking even to me that they never had a single dinner out together. Maybe they had moments one-on-one together, right? But never kind of a dinner, to just break bread one-on-one. And Scottie emphasized, no, it was always in a group setting. Okay, let's move forward here.
Michael's house just sold, the one in Chicago.
Yeah.
Right? I think it sold for like 9.6 million or some number like that, if I'm not mistaken. We like the house. We were interested, but possibly doing something with that because of the history in it. How often did you guys hang out in that house, go shooting, basketball, talking, mentally getting ready for the playoffs?
I never shot basketball there. I actually would go over in the morning when Grover was training. We would train together.
Scottie, can you get the mic a little bit closer?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was actually, I would train with Michael. I guess the last 3 championships that we won, we trained together at his house. But other than that, we didn't really put a lot of time in away from basketball. Most of our time was spent, whether we were working out or on the practice floor.
That's so wild to me because, that feedback was given sometimes about Kobe. That Kobe wasn't a guy that hung out with his teammates. First run that he had. And then Phil, the story about Phil brings Michael in and he says, hey, Michael, I want you to meet Kobe. And Kobe says, I'd beat you one-on-one if we played one-on-one, right? That exchange. And then Kobe eventually, you can tell him and Pau became best of buddies, brothers, family. You see Pau with Vanessa, with family. It's emotional, all of that stuff. Wow. That's hard to believe, Scottie. Would you say he was such a... Oh, man, that's...
He's getting tongue-tied.
Because sometimes when a guy is such an alpha at the highest level, the idea sometimes to lead your guys is be close enough to influence, but far enough to not make them too comfortable with you. The Prince Machiavelli talks about that. A lot of leaders talk about that, and it doesn't make sense to the average. It's kind of like, what are you talking about? Is go build a relationship, go build a bond, et cetera, et cetera. Some guys go that route. I wonder how much of that was more from his analysis of, listen, I'm above, I'm the leader, I'm the head guy here, and he didn't want to get too close to his guys. Especially if you're saying you guys never had dinner together, Scottie?
No.
You can see Scottie here, man. Wow. Man, Scottie's expression here. I have a question. There is power in legacy or power in likability. And I think some people are willing to have their legacy outlast likability, but at what cost, right? Because we have to not just look at our earthly impact, but if we're followers of Jesus Christ, what is our eternal impact? And, Scottie reflecting on Michael's competitiveness and how it shaped their dynamic. We were there to practice. We were there to do this, to do that, but nothing else. I think Jordan's obsession with winning forged a legacy transcending basketball, right? But I think it left relational casualties. Now we can say, hey, this is Scottie's fault, but ultimately we're going to have to, like what Patrick Bet David is doing, really pinning this on Jordan, because Jordan would be the leader, so to speak. And so I guess you're going to have to ask yourself that question. Is it worth sacrificing relationships for legacy? Think about Steve Jobs, whose innovation really revolutionized the tech industry, but whose perfectionism strained his personal ties. He would end up obviously dying with those personal ties still very strained. Ecclesiastes 2:11, Solomon laments everything was meaningless, a chasing after the wind. Despite unparalleled wealth and wisdom and success, Solomon's heart grew empty. because he took in everything that he could take in. And then he realized afterwards that actually the only thing that matters is worshiping God, serving God, obeying God. And you contrast this with Paul, for example, the Apostle Paul in the New Testament, who wrote in Philippians 3:8, I consider everything a loss because of the surpassing worth of knowing Christ. You know, legacy finds its truest meaning in pointing others to eternity. I was watching this documentary about Alexander the Great and how he conquered really the known world by the age of 32, but then died extremely lonely. He would end up killing the closest people around him, his closest comrades. He would end up murdering while he was drunk someone who saved his life. And he would end up really lamenting and regretting it. He would end up burning an entire city drunk, and then, you know, sobering up and just realizing, oh my goodness, I can't believe I just ruined and destroyed potentially thousands of years of artifacts. And he's quoted saying, I die with the help of too many physicians. You know, his story warns us that achievement without connection is really hollow victory. Now, we can still talk about Alexander the Great today, but ultimately he's not here today. He went on a conquest. He murdered a lot of people. He ended up murdering even his closest friends, his closest trusted friends. Like, what a tragic life. Tim Keller writes, the gospel is this: we are more sinful and flawed than we ever dared believe, yet more loved and accepted than we ever dared hope. Our hope and our worth isn't in our achievements, but it's in Christ's achievement and Christ's love for us. And so I'm going to leave you with this. What's more important to you, leaving a legacy or building meaningful relationships? And my question is, can they coexist? And, you know, at the end of the day, forgiveness is not about forgetting. It's about letting go of the hurt. You're never going to forget what happened, but you can release that hurt. You know, one thing that we can do actually is write a letter. You don't even have to send the letter. You can write a letter expressing your hurt and desire for healing. You can pray over it, and you don't even have to send it. You can just write it, let it out, or you can pray about it, give it to God every single day. If there's hurt there, if there's anger there, you know, from mess to message, from test to testimony, like life, are messy. But in Christ, even our broken relationships can become a message of hope. And your pain has purpose. It can point others to the healer. So remember what the Apostle Paul said: we are more than conquerors through him who loved us. And this week, maybe we can choose one action to reconnect, one action to listen, one action to forgive, to collaborate, to have a dinner. And I pray that our broken relationships would mend and they would become testimonies of God's grace and how he reconciles us to the Father, and that he would help us love others the way he loves us. Welcome to the Revo Report. We're inspiring faith with reason and reason with faith.